I have watched a lot of unboxing videos on YouTube for things like toys and slime and all kinds of things that fascinate my kids who are 8, 6, and 2.5. But today I actually want to make my own unboxing video, which is unboxing of my upcoming book release, Dismantled, Abusive Church Culture and the Clergy Women Who Leave. So I just got the delivery here of my author copies from Tehom Center Publishing, and I just wanted to come on here and unbox them, read a brief excerpt or two, and encourage folks to check out this work, this important groundbreaking research that affects not only clergy women and faith-based institutions, but in general, any kind of leadership space that's seeking to be more equitable and more ethical, in particular, how it relates to self-differentiated women leaders. So I began to unopen here, but I wanted to get the full effect. It's hard to open, honestly. Okay. And these are my author copies. And it does feel incredible to hold these right now because what they really hold are the experiences of incredibly talented and gifted women leaders who have gone through so much and endured so much to come to the realization that they could no longer promote or support an institution that was as dehumanizing and abusive as they had experienced. So I will open this up briefly and read 2 excerpts, and then I will also provide just some details on how to order this in the description box below. Let's see, pulling open just the end of the book where I have just some kind of concluding remarks for those who read through the whole book. This will make more sense having read some of the research findings. But this comes from the end. This is the last chapter. Throughout this study, I sought to center the women's voices and promote emancipatory research that addresses oppressive social systems and relational dynamics. At the same time, I wanted to highlight the women's leadership strengths, decision-making capacity, and deep self-awareness that developed throughout their experiences in and beyond ordained ministry. Each of the women were deeply affected by the experiences that they went through as they continued to do the hard work of trauma recovery and reconstituting of self. Many voiced that what they went through was unjust, a response that I echo as both a feminist researcher and a former clergy. Therefore, I am cautious of any discussions that attempt to minimize or deflect the women's lived experiences of trauma in order to present a cohesive story of healing. In sharing this research, I have intentionally avoided overly hopeful or redemptive conclusions and instead prefer to let the women's voices and experiences speak for themselves. So I think before I read the last bit here, which is from one of the research participants herself, I just wanted to briefly give the context for what this research covered. For 6 months, January through June of last year, 2024, I interviewed 20 clergy women from 8 mainline Protestant denominations, which have an established history of women's ordination. The criteria for the research was that they had left a particular leadership position as a solo pastor or a associate pastor. They left a particular position or overall ministry in general because of violations of their psychological safety and interpersonal boundaries. And the transcripts that were put together based on the interviews that I did totaled 280 pages of transcripts, including over 2,000 excerpts that were drawn out, analyzed, and compared between the interviews using the particular methodology that I used, which I will link below, more details on the research and the study design. But the in-depth interviews were key. That was the primary data of this research. So the verbatim interviews, line by line, in the own words of the clergy women themselves, were extremely powerful and really brought about the research findings that ultimately came out of this research. So I'll close with a really powerful quote from one of the interviews using a pseudonym, Jenny. That's not her real name, but she selected that. So she says here, After feeling guilty about using the word abuse, I feel liberated to use it. If what I experienced was abuse, then it's easier to see that how I felt and my struggles to cope were not my fault. It wasn't a lack of resilience or strength. It was the reality of working in a toxic environment. You never get used to breathing poison. You have to remove yourself from it in order to feel better. It changes my feelings from cowering and shame to standing tall and feeling proud of what I was able to accomplish in the midst of that abuse and toxicity. It also makes me feel angry because I would have loved to have my whole career in the church, and now I have to reinvent myself. There's liberation in that, but also a sadness and anger that it's even necessary. So I'll leave my sharing from the book at that, but I'll encourage you to just look further into what this book is about. I'll include some links below. It'll be available for purchase on March 28th. There's also the option to have a Kindle edition, but I am extremely grateful for the clergy women themselves who participated in this research, as well as the staff and professors and dissertation committee that were part of my PhD dissertation through Antioch University. All of those acknowledgments are included in the book as well. So I'm incredibly grateful and humbled today to be holding these copies, and I would not have been able to share this work without the deep courage and vulnerability that was shared by each of the women who participate in this. So thank you to each and every one of you. And I look forward to hosting several book launch events, again, which you'll find in the description box below, to continue to build a community of consciousness raising around these important issues, both within religion and faith-based organizations and in secular business and community-based organizations as well. Bye-bye.